Public speaker, mentor, radio host of the #1 breakfast show in the UAE, and TV host of Dubai One. She has interviewed some of the biggest names from Tyra Banks to Gary Vee.
It's not the Nimi that you see on Instagram now. It's just a very, very meek, shy version. It was a girl that just really didn't know who she was. I'm an Indian, so growing up culturally, it was very much, I didn't feel like my voice was heard, it was seen, it was understood, and I became the next face of MTV. So when you're not sharing your own narrative and you're not able to share your own voice, what happens then is you have zero control over that. I think there were two things that really transferred from tennis to now my media career. That is discipline and consistency. You know, there's been a lot of criticism about the alter ego concept, because a lot of people think that it's fake, it's not you. Why can't you just be yourself? My higher self is my best self. If you think about it, we're one version with our parents, we're one version with our best friends, we're one version with our work colleagues. That is also alter egos.
I think it's just brilliant the way you've dissected it and studied it. And it's not you got it or you haven't. You've actually earned it, learned it, worked it out. That is a massive takeaway. It's Nimi Mehta, everyone. Woo!
What an intro.
Oh my gosh, I'm so excited to have you on. I've been following you for a while and I just love the energy that you're putting out in the world.
You're so kind.
So, you are also a girl from London.
Yes.
So I love you even more.
Yes.
But you made your way to Dubai, and I want to know, let me go back a little bit, rewind selected to when you were in London and Nimi growing up.
Yeah.
What was life like for you, Nimi? Which part of London are you from?
So northwest London, near Watford. So grew up there. And it was a bubble. Like, I look back on it now and I'm like, I was really just exposed to the same type of people. You know, I had the same, which I love, which is my friends that are still my friends to this day that I grew up with. But it was a very different Nimi. It's not the Nimi that you see on Instagram now. It is not the Nimi you see on TV. It's just a very, very meek, shy version. It was a girl that just really didn't know who she was, didn't know where she was going. And I think we all resonate with that. We were all lost when we were younger. But the difference in that is that I really, really had zero confidence at that age. You know, I'd say up until the age of like 18 to 21 is when I started to gather and muster a bit of myself and a bit of a voice. But I mean, literally just to give you an example, at a restaurant, right? I'm 18 years old and I asked my little sister to ask the waiter for a glass of water for me because I literally could not do it.
I can't even see that.
I couldn't do it. I couldn't ask a grown adult another question. And so my younger sister, who is so full of confidence, who really just has always had a voice for as long as I can remember, she would ask the questions for me. And I always felt like it was my mom, it was my dad, it was my sister who was my voice. And then everything started to change after a few years.
Is there anything that you can pinpoint from where that kind of fear or shyness came from? Was there a specific moment that you spoke up that you felt, oh my gosh, maybe I shouldn't do that again? Or was it just something that you just constantly had?
I think, you know, culturally, I'm an Indian. So growing up culturally, it was very much, we were told as kids, don't speak around adults. You know, this is an adult conversation. Second, it was at school, only speak when spoken to. So I feel like there was no real space that was held for me. And I feel like a lot of people can relate to that space is not physically, you can't see it, but it is this energy in a room that I didn't feel like my voice was enough. I didn't feel like my voice was heard, it was seen, it was understood. And I think that was that repeated, and it was a cycle that just kept happening over and over again. And when that kept happening, I recognized a pattern of, okay, Nimi, it doesn't matter what you say, it doesn't matter what you feel, because no one's listening and no one's watching. And I think that that's the narrative that was kind of created in my mind for a very, very long time, and it was a lived experience.
I 100% get that. And I think for a lot of kind of people from, let's say, the subcontinent of India, Pakistan, growing up, it wasn't sometimes it was almost like the value of what you had to say wasn't quite there, because children were children and adults were adults, and adults knew everything.
Yeah.
And as a child, you don't know enough. So you don't really have the value to add to that conversation.
Totally.
I totally get that. In fact, I remember when I was younger, like if you'd have guests come around, you'd be asked to go upstairs.
Yeah.
And like,
You were
it's
physically
so crazy
removed.
to
Yeah.
actually think that, because I've got kids, and you're like, you know, you usher your kids in and you're always like talking about your kids, but you'd literally be going, okay, like guests are coming, the place better be clean, and you better guys better go upstairs. You like be upstairs, like, oh my gosh.
Yeah, and so
it's
then
crazy.
when we got older though, when we were teenagers, that's when the parents would be like, come down and say hello. It's like, oh, so now you want me in the room.
So true.
When I don't even want to be there anymore.
I know.
Whereas as kids, you know, you're soaking everything in. And, you know, I think that our generation now is so much more aware of that. And I don't blame our parents' generation. They just did what they could do the best they could do it.
I do get it. I do kind of look back and think people were just so busy around you trying to make life happen, because it was so hard, that they didn't, it was never done in a kind of like malicious way. It was almost like, oh, you just don't know, so to protect you, just go upstairs and watch something or be out the way. But I've never really, the way you put it there, of not having that space, I didn't actually realize how much that actually does affect you. So tell me what happened in that moment where you're 18, you're kind of really shy, you're asking your sister to speak for you. When is the moment that you kind of was like, listen, I've got a voice too? What was that moment?
I think I realized during university that if I don't start shaping myself, the narrative is going to be built for me by someone else. So when you're not sharing your own narrative and you're not able to share your own voice, what happens then is it's left to interpretation. And when it's left to interpretation, the people around you, whether that's friends, whether that's family, colleagues, whoever it may be, start creating a narrative of you on their own. And you can't dictate that. You have zero control over that. So I realized that I constantly felt misunderstood in a lot of my friendship circles at university. I was a very quiet person. So my silence was always misunderstood for arrogance. And it was just simply, no, I'm just really uncomfortable in social situations. I didn't like big groups, which at university is like the only way to socialize. I really loved one-to-one connections, like sitting down just like this with someone, even still to this day. I'm like, my friend says, oh, let's go to this party. No, I don't want to go to that. Tell me when you're free for a coffee and we'll go and hang out. Because that, for me, that's just deeper connection. We actually see each other. And I realized that in order for people to see me, I have to also show myself, right? No one's going to actively go looking for me. So I put myself out of my comfort zone and I started a private YouTube channel that no one could see, only I could see. And I was just filming videos in my home. You know, I was so inspired by people at the time like Lily Singh, and she was doing comedic videos. And I thought, well, I can be funny. So I started filming videos exactly like Lily.
I would love to see some of those videos.
I should make them public, actually. Yes. And then I started feeling a bit more confident about myself. And I would watch the videos over and be like, oh, maybe you should do this differently. And at this point, I had just left a semi-professional tennis career.
It's almost like you started coaching yourself, like literally looking at yourself, like a little bit subjectively, like standing back and saying, oh, how could I improve that?
Absolutely. And I think that no one taught me that. Like, I can't even say I had a mentor or someone, you know, that was guiding me to become more confident. It's not taught to us. You know, it's not something at school that we have a confidence and communication class.
So needed though, right?
Right. And bless our parents, again, like you said, way too busy to even get into that with us. And so confidence started to build from then. It's those YouTube videos. I mean, I was getting 1 or 2 views. One was my mum, one was my sister. So it's not like, oh my gosh, I was booming, but I was just being consistent with it. And the thing that shaped me after that and gave me like the fire in the belly to keep going was the adversity. It was the people at university. It was the people who were my friends who were like, what is she doing? She's embarrassing herself. God, this is so cringe. And
how did you take that? Because you know, at that age, I mean, at any age, but at that age, it does kind of like, you know, you want to almost like find a little group and to kind of get that kind of comments coming back, it can be quite hurtful, can't it?
I just had this unbelievable belief in myself. It was low-key a bit delusional, that like, oh, no, but my purpose is bigger than this.
I love it.
I kind of was just like, I can't hang around with little people who can't even see the vision that I have for myself. And so it drove me even more. 100% I'm human at the same time. So I'm not going to say, oh yeah, straight away I was like, let's go. Oh my gosh, crying in my bed. Why don't they support me? Why don't they like me? That was the time of Facebook as well, where everything was Facebook, and people would hide tag people's names so they would like reshare on Facebook to like support. And I wasn't getting any support from friends, from family members. And I was like, why is no one supporting me? And I realized, you know what? It doesn't matter. As long as you've got you, that is all that matters. And so after I would cry, after I would like have a moment with myself, I'd get back to it. I didn't stop. I was like, no, I believe this. I have this vision for myself. I've got to pursue it. And luckily I had parents who supported me as well.
Do you think, I know you played, is it semi-professional tennis?
Yeah.
Do you think that some kind of aspect of that sports mentality came through? Like the whole thing of like, I remember when I first really kind of started playing, tennis, any type of sport. And I used to get so pissed off when you get it wrong.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And someone actually turned around to me and said, stop going on about the thing that you got wrong or didn't hit. You just got to keep hitting without knowing whether that hit or whether it didn't. You got to keep going. Do you think that came through with building a bit of resilience in you, that came through when that, when that ball didn't hit, you're like, I'm going for it anyway?
Yeah. And I think there were two things that really transferred from tennis to now my media career. That is discipline and consistency. Those two have been the pillars that have made me able to be as successful as I am today. And all successful athletes in the world, they will share the same. It's those two things that drive you, that keep you going. And we had mental coaching during my tennis years as well. I was, we would sit down, we were journaling during that time. And now I look back on it, I was like, I was 14, 15 journaling. Now it's a thing. But back then it was so alien. It was like, why am I made to do this? This is so silly. We kind of like brushed it aside. But they told us that, 80% of the tennis game or a sport in general is mental. 20% is physical. The physical isn't even that important. It's all what's going up in here. And so I knew that, and I transferred that when I was coming across challenges, barriers, people telling me, no, you can't do this. I took it as a challenge. I actually kind of welcomed it. It's like, okay, you don't believe I'm going to do this? I'm about to go show you.
I love it.
So that was kind of like the mentality always.
I can so see that kind of like sports like angle that you are bringing to your career, that actually, when you take everything away and you're left with that discipline and that mindset, anything can happen, but you are able to get through it just because you got those pillars in place.
Yeah.
Which I think is probably why, and we'll come on to the kind of the work that you're doing now, why it really works with that framework. So there you were, you're starting to now like form your voice, you're doing the work on YouTube. What was next for you? Tell me how you made that jump.
I was injured at 18, and this is when all my friends were going to university, and I didn't have much of a social life. I was pretty much homeschooled. Every time I would see my friends on Facebook, like they were always out, or that's when everyone started clubbing at 18 and started doing all the fun stuff, and I was never involved in any of that. And I thought, I made a decision. I was like, and my coach kind of put it on the table for me. He said, listen, you can either become a professional tennis player but be absolutely mediocre, or you can go into something new and start with a blank canvas. It was in that moment where I really sat with myself, and I was like, I love tennis, I love the sport. There's such thing as burnout, especially with a child athlete. And I got to a point, my parents were just so amazing, and I just said to them, like, I've just lost my love for it. I've lost the love for the sport. I feel like it's more of a chore now. I don't get up with a spring in my step. I'm not happy. And they were like, leave. It doesn't matter. Leave. Go and start something new. And so that's when I applied for university. And My mum was always like, you know what, I think you'd be a great journalist. And I was like, where did you get that from? I barely speak, but I think that when you're with your mum, you're your most natural self. And so she must have seen something in me. So I started looking for journalism degrees across the UK, got into City of London, and I started a degree there, and I did 3 years. I come out of university, and during that time, my dream was to have a magazine of my own. It was like editorial. This is what I want. I still have like the sample magazine that I've like drawn and cut out and all of that stuff. But that's when the internet really boomed. And so everything kind of transferred over to digital, but also broadcast. And my eyes were kind of open to the broadcast world. I started doing everything from the ground up in terms of work experience and internship. I didn't care what position it was, as long as I was in the media and I was applying for like Hello Magazine, I was applying for ITV internships, just absolutely anywhere. And then it was a process of elimination, and I got down to broadcast is 100% something that I want to do. And so I come out of university, and MTV are looking for a new presenter, and they launched this competition online. And I'm like, again, delusional Nimi, 100% this was made for me. I don't care who else applies. They are literally asking for me. And so I gathered all my friends. Like the application process was to do this.
I mean, it's so big, right? MTV. You're like, what?
And not a lot of people get to say they're an MTV presenter. So I got all my family and friends together in a church hall, like rehearsal room. And I got them to do this mock-up video where I'm at Fashion Week and I'm walking through the dressing room. And even now it's on YouTube, and they're all like faking being models and hairstylists and stuff. And I applied with that video, and I became the next face of MTV UK, which is just unbelievable.
Is insane.
Right? And I was 23, and I genuinely thought I made it. I was like, my life is done. Like, I felt like it was also like I was outside watching my life. I didn't feel like I was living it. I was at London Fashion Week. I was at the hottest events in the UK, hosting red carpets. It still didn't feel 100% me now that I look back on it. And then the contract ended a year later, and I was unemployed for so many years.
Wow.
Yeah.
After all that, from being so shy, right? So I know personally myself, the first time I was asked to come and speak, it was a leadership conference at my corporate job. And I cannot tell you the fear that I felt. I was like, physically, like that feeling of I don't know how I'm going to do it. I got this TEDx books, I was watching TEDx speakers. I was like, but the fear that I felt before I went up was insane. Never felt anything like it. Tell me how you got through that fear. Like, so all of a sudden you've got this. Now you're asked to do all these things that you've never done before, and that fear like sets in. What made you kind of go, I've got it? Or like, did you pep talk yourself? Are you rubbing like your hands? What were you doing?
There's so many things that I have now able to put into kind of like a framework of what can be done by absolutely anyone to overcome that fear. But Nimi back then, what I know now is that I created an alter ego. So the shy Nimi who's at home, who's socially a bit weird, who, doesn't feel comfortable talking to a grown adult and asking for a glass of water, she was left at home whenever she had to go and do these kind of engagements. So I created this persona of this individual, and it got to a point where I was able to switch her on and off. Like every time I would leave an event, it was like, then I'm just back to being me again. But then I realized, and I mean,
that is a thing, right? Because you have like Sasha Fierce and you have celebrities who have this alter ego. And I think even in Greek times, there was this whole thing of the alter ego for your theatrical performances.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think there's been a lot of criticism about the alter ego concept, because a lot of people think that it's fake, it's not you. Why can't you just be yourself? My higher self is my best self. And I say to that, I am so happy for you if you're able to do that naturally. But there are a lot of people in this world that aren't able to do that. And these kind of tools, like forming an alter ego, are able to get them to a point where these kind of things then become natural. So an alter ego consists of, you finding the best of the people that you inspire to be like. right? So I started studying, I mean, meticulously studying, day in, day out, the people that I absolutely adore and look up to. From your Oprahs to your Jamila Jamils to your Davina McCalls. I would be stuck to the TV or watching on YouTube any of their videos. People who aren't even that well known, I would come across their TED Talks and I would be like, my gosh, I love her poise.
Yeah.
I love her body language. I love her facial expressions. I love how she pauses in her sentences. And I started just grabbing these inspirations, not imitating, being inspired by these people and implementing it into my character. And that was when I realized that, wow, this actually feels really natural to me. So it got past, you want to be able to shed your alter ego. That's the goal, because you realize that it's a part of you and it always has been. You just haven't had that channel to be able to express it in the best way possible.
Yeah.
And I think you can do that at any age. Like, even if tomorrow I decide I want to be something else, or I want to create a different kind of version of me. If you think about it, we're one version with our parents. We're one version with our best friends. We're one version with our work colleagues. That is also alter egos. These are different personas and different versions of us. This just has a name to it.
I really like that concept, because I think what it allows us to do is not box ourselves in and say, I'm not good at that. You know, I can't public speak, or you hear that so much, I could never get up and do that. And actually what it allows people to do is go, hang on a second, if there is a practical way that you can learn it, it means it's available to all of us. And I remember when I did that talk, what opened up for me in that job afterwards was insane. And that was the first time I actually realized how much value your voice has. But, to almost put yourself in the kind of box of going, I'm not good at that, so I'm never going to allow myself, is almost closing yourself off to the opportunities that are available to you. So I think it's just brilliant the way you've dissected it and studied it. I mean, you could probably write, a university degree on it, the way that you've really studied it meticulously. But it allows people to have that access, where people have thought, oh, you either got it or you haven't.
Yeah.
And it's not you got it or you haven't. You've actually earned it, learned it, worked it out, found out your own way of doing it. And I think that, and we'll talk about your speaker kind of platform, why that's so powerful and growing the way it is. So you get told after 1 year of having this most amazing year, you're flying, you're turning up to London Fashion Week, and they're like, okay, done.
Yeah.
Like, okay, like I'd be crying.
Yeah.
What? And also you're kind of going, I've just started. I mean, come on. So where was your mind there?
It was like such a knock to my confidence.
Yeah.
It was exactly like you said. I was flying high. I thought, I made it. It humbled me really quickly, and it grounded me. And I look back on it now and I'm like, wow, I'm so glad it happened, because if it didn't happen, I don't think I would appreciate the high after that and what I'm living now. So it was a struggle, and I was unemployed for a while, and I was still so determined that I'm meant to be a presenter. Like,
were you getting a lot of kind of pushback of maybe do something that's a little bit more safe, or because anything in the arts or speaking or presenting, it's almost like, well, if it doesn't work, maybe you should have a fallback position and do something like that is a little bit more safer. Were you getting that?
It's so funny that you mentioned that, because I was just talking to my sister about it the other day, which was that I had so many naysayers. Like, everyone apart from my parents told me, this was fun, but maybe you should consider something a bit more serious.
A real job.
A real job. Presenting is not a real job. And that really just would get me so angry, because what do you mean it's not a real job? I see people living it and breathing it on Channel 4, on ITV, on BBC. What do you mean? And then I realized, oh, it's not a real job in our culture.
Yeah.
Right? Growing up in an Indian culture, it was like these kind of things weren't legit. They weren't. Like, if you're a doctor, dentist, lawyer, accountant, even, these kind of things made you credible. And my parents never put that on me and my sister. they really always just wanted us to follow what we believe or our passion. I got told so many times, why don't you get into the family business? You know, maybe you're meant to help your parents even more and get to the next stage. And I'm like, what about me? What about me? And I feel like a lot of us fall into that trap because that would have been the easy thing to do. If anything, getting into the family business or going into, you know, whatever other legit career there is would have been the easy way out. But I would have suffered long term. The short term, it would have been easier. But I think that then I was kind of like, no, I need to stay focused. Like if no one else believes in me, I believe in me. So I need to continue and pursue this. And I did have a time where all of my friends were then making money, you know, everyone was going out, and let's just be real about that.
Yeah.
We need money.
Yeah.
Okay. As much as I would love to say we don't, we do. Does money bring happiness? Absolutely not. Does money bring peace? Yes, it does. Okay. It brings us the ability to do the things that we do truly love and want to do. And I realized that quite early on. And, you know, I was just like, okay, maybe I need to get a real job. Maybe I need to do something. So I did feel pressured, and I went into PR, and PR is 24/7. It's a really, really intense job. And I did that for a couple of years in London. And still, I remember when I joined the company, the guy was like to me, okay, so you're done with this presenting thing though, right? Like, you're not going to leave me one day and go off, because we're going to train you and we want you to stay long term. We want you to get to like management level. And I was like, yeah, absolutely. 2 years later, I come to him and I'm like, I really think I'm meant to be a presenter and I need to leave. And he goes, I knew this was going to happen. I knew I could still see the fire in you from 2 years ago when I met you. So it was like even he saw it in me, and he probably knew this was interim, but it gave me that kind of financial stability for a time, which then allowed me to see that this brings me absolutely no joy, and it's not my calling and it's not my purpose. So I need to continue and pursue. And that's when I got into a bit of radio. And that's when everything that I was doing was for free. So I wasn't getting paid for anything. These internships, this work experience, radio in my local radio station was free. It was voluntary. But
at a time where now everyone's making money too.
Yeah. And it was such a regression as well, because I went from then earning good money to then no money. And it was all for like the right reasons and a good cause. And I just had to believe in the process. And radio again was a new craft. I'd never dabbled into it. It was a challenge. I had to learn a brand new skill and really learn it from the ground up. And I loved it, but it was hard. I mean, my first radio show was horrible. It was horrendous, you know? Like that mic goes up.
Oh, just from, in what way?
In the way of like, first of all, my voice didn't sound like this. My voice was super squeaky and high. Like, oh my God, hey guys, it's Nimi, this is Vibe 107.6. It was like this. Like when I listen back to my demos, I've since trained my voice to change intentionally, which is absolutely something anyone or everyone can do. If you don't like the sound of your voice, if you feel like when you hear your voice it's annoying, if you think that people find your voice annoying, if you've got the feedback that your voice is annoying to listen to,
that is so interesting.
You can change it. I changed the depth of my voice, I changed the thickness of my voice, and now it just is my voice. It's an instrument. Your voice is an actual instrument.
I've never heard anyone talk about it like that, which is it's so good, because look, how many times do you hear yourself and you're going, hey, I don't sound like that. I don't sound like that. But you just think you have what you have. Like that is your set of your tools that you have. You don't ever go, oh, I can change that.
Because your voice.
That's a bit mind blowing that you can actually change your voice. And I'm sure people who go acting school all know this, but the general public who don't go to acting school or do any of that stuff think, okay, that is just my voice. But actually it's an instrument that you can change and flex to how you want to sound.
Yeah, and no one actually told me that. It was just something that I realized I didn't when I was, one thing I do all the time is give myself feedback.
Yeah, I noticed that.
Yeah, that's really,
which is great.
Really important to do, because I wasn't delusional to the point where I thought I was perfect. I always knew there was room for growth. So when I did hear my voice, I instantly was like, oh, that first time on the radio, I was like, this needs to change. So I thought, okay, how can we do that? The voice is a literal instrument. It can do anything you want to do, whichever way you want to do it. And so I started to then just train it a bit more and become a lot more consistent with it. Listen to my voice, then be like, okay, I think that sounds about right. That's what I want to keep it at. And that's how it's always stayed since.
It feels like you've kind of come at this as an art, you know, as developing and crafting your art rather than, you know, you've either got it or you don't. And you find that like things in presenting, acting, singing, you know, it's like you've either got it or you haven't. You know, you feel that when you watch X Factor and you watch different things where it's you standing up and doing something. In that moment, you either got it or you haven't, and then you're out. When really what you're saying is, it's not whether you have it or you haven't. If you want it, you can develop it and create it.
100%. 100%. It is there for the taking. And all you have to do is recognize, identify what it is that you want first. And I think that's where people struggle the most, is they have this idea of what they want the end result to be, or I want to be this one day, I want to be the best chef in the world. Okay, amazing. But what about these steps to get there? Let's identify what it is and let's slowly get there. It's a process. And that's the toughest part, is a lot of my clients, a lot of the workshops that I do, when they say, oh, I hate my public speaking. You know, I don't think I sound good. I don't think I look good. I think I look really weak. And I'm like, okay, so what do you want to be like? And they're like, what do you mean? What do I want to be like? Tell me what you want. And they can't even tell me what it is that they want. And the answer that I'm looking for is, I like the way Oprah does this, or I want my voice to sound like X.
Be specific.
Be
about
so
actually
specific.
what you want.
100%.
That is some really good advice there, because I think we all get a little bit stuck with that's just the way I am.
Yeah.
And actually that's all created. I mean, even the people that you do look at, that you know, you think, oh my gosh, they're amazing the way they do that. They have also gone through a process,
100%.
you know, and you look at earlier tapes and you can see their growth journey and how they've really kind of developed and crafted what they do. So I don't think anybody really just turns up on day one as the kind of finished product. And to have that in your mind, that it is a daily act of working at it. And so to get kind of your voice right, did you go and get voice lessons, or what do you get?
Oh my gosh, I didn't. I know there are a lot of vocal coaches out there for singing or for just speaking, but I just did self-feedback. So I was literally recording my voice at any opportunity that I got, whether that was visual and audio, listening to it back. Okay, I want to change this, I want to change that. I think like external feedback is really good. So if you're able to do so, and if you're comfortable enough to do so, share it with your family and friends. Be like, what do you think of this? I do this sounds really weird, but I like to do like a yearly survey with my family and friends. And
Your family is just the best. I love it.
And I like to send them questions. But these are less about public speaking in my work. These are more about me as a human and a character and a person. So how do I make you feel? How do you feel when you're around me? You know, all these kind of questions. Also, one I love to ask is, what color do you see when you think about me? Because I think what I love about this is these are the closest people to you in the world. They know you inside out, right? So for me, the layer outside of that, which is people who don't know me, people who maybe have met me once, their opinion really doesn't matter to me. The people who I truly care about, their opinion matters. And so when I have been given feedback, if my partner says, I feel like you haven't been that present the last month, that to me, okay, I need to do something about it. So this is what I mean about I'm constantly trying to confront myself getting better as a human.
And I think what I'm really getting from this is there is a constant feedback loop that you are applying in every area of your life.
Yeah.
Which is, it's the way that, I mean, and I can only think that obviously playing tennis daily, almost like a drill all the time, finding all the little 1% where you're going to get better, is the mindset that you've applied across personal and also your work life, which I think is a massive takeaway, right? For us. I mean, I'm thinking even myself, going back, right? That feedback loop, intentionally creating it, not just going, hey, what do you got? Intentionally creating it, because if your desire is to be that version of you, we hear all, you know, I want to be the best version of me. Okay, how do you get to the best version of you if you don't know where you are right now to where you want to go, and you're not making some kind of assessment? And we do that, you know, with so many things outside of ourselves. Work asks us to do, you have a, you know, if you're in a corporate job, you'll have a 6 monthly kind of like a checkup on where you are, and they'll see where you were and where you've moved to. And to apply that in your life, wow, that is really quite powerful. And it's something that actually is quite simple to do, but in terms of the kind of impact that it can have on your growth is pretty phenomenal, which I can almost, I'm sitting here now thinking, I can see why you've done all the things that you've done. I was reading through like what you've done. I was like, oh my God, this girl is on fire. She's done so much. And I'm like, I can see why, because you've applied this feedback loop, which is only there because you're like, I want to get better at it. I want to be that person that is constantly moving the needle forward. And I think if any of us kind of feel a bit stuck in any place and you're just going, why am I stuck here? To just see if you can create a little feedback loop with some of the closest around you and with yourself. I think the whole thing of even recording your voice, you know, if you can't sit and listen to yourself, or, you know, record your, we've all got a phone, just play it back. If you can't listen to that, then how do you expect anybody else to listen to that? And I think it's not a skill that it's like, okay, you want to be a podcaster or a presenter, but in your work. I mean, I know how important it was in my work. I didn't know how important it was in my work until I was asked to do that talk. And when I did, you know, and it went well, but I've got to say the nerves still, I just remember feeling physically sick. But when I came off there, well, how everybody wanted to speak to you, how now you're featured in the internal magazine, and now people are coming and asking your opinion. And you've now positioned yourself as a bit of a key leader, a person of, you know, a person of key influence in the business. And you've just done that because you've done all the work before. But that one moment that you spoke, it made that much difference. It was absolutely like eye-opening to me because I didn't even think that was what the backlash was going to be. So you then, just to kind of like get it back, in terms of like you developed how to train your voice, how to get better at it, created these feedback loops, which is, I'm taking away that one for sure. What happened between, you know, things are now starting to happen, but obviously some things are paid, some things aren't. And you're thinking, I'm thinking out there. I need to get more. Where did the jump from being in London to Dubai happen?
So that I was still at the radio, the voluntary radio station, and I was 6 months there, and I was trying everything. I was creating demos to send out to all of the UK stations. You know, I got through to Kiss, Capital. I was doing demos with these guys. For some reason, they just didn't want me. I mean, I hope they regret it now.
Totally regret it now.
And it got to a point where I was like, I've got to expand my scope. And I was always coming back and forth to Dubai growing up because of my parents having a business here. So, you know, Dubai was no stranger to me. I absolutely love this country. And there is so much power in being a majority in a country. And I say that because I felt, you know, especially during the time that I was trying to make it in the media, there was absolutely no one that really looked like me in mainstream media. Jamila Jamil was really doing it at the time. So she was kind of like my beacon of hope. But after that, you know, now, compare it to now.
Oh my gosh. It's like
everyone.
Yeah. And I've got a 12-year-old daughter who loves like theatre and all of that. And she has got so many people that she just looks exactly, she's like, oh, she's just like me. And I was like, wow. I did not have that at all. And Jamila Jamil was like literally the only person.
She was. And the thing is, what it can do at a young age is when you don't have representation in the industry in which you want to go into, what you're then doing is you're basically telling that kid there's no space for you there. It's not possible. And so
when you're getting that at home, where like, you know, mostly families then kind of, you know, it's not recognized as a real kind of like a real career, right? Then you look at the industry and you're like, well, also there's nobody out there that looks like me. It's almost like it shuts so many doors that so many people probably had a thought that I'd like to do it and thought, no, it's not going to happen. It's just not going to happen.
Honestly, every single thing that I came across on a daily basis was telling me to give up. It was telling me, do not pursue this. You are not going to be a presenter. It is not for you. And one thing that I love to actually say is that I think it was my faith in a higher power that got me through that time. Because when you have a faith in a higher power, whether you want to call it God, whether you want to call it the universe, whatever you want to call that energy, is that I believe that that energy had my back. I had this relationship with that higher power where I thought, if it's meant to be for me, it will be for me. And so I'm going to keep doing what brings me joy, what brings me happiness. And at the end of the day, that power is going to bring to me what I deserve. And so that kind of backing just elevated my confidence. That faith, or whatever faith you are, whatever religion you are, whatever you believe in, that should actually be your foundation, the thing that helps you rise up towards the thing that you want. Because that for me is invaluable, and still to this day it is with me. And that is what also helps me to not compare myself to other people. That helps me not to say like, oh, you know, they have this, I don't have this. Because if it's meant for me, you know, like God loves me, God has my back. I believe in that so much. Me and my sister say to each other all the time, you know, when we say like, oh, what if this happens? And we say to each other, no, like that's not written for us. You know, this is written for us.
It makes you unwavering, doesn't it? And it comes from a different source. So when it's built up on kind of a foundation that can be knocked over by somebody comparing you, or you comparing yourself, and comparison will rob you, absolutely rob you. When you take it away from that, then it's almost unshakable, right? And I see that in you. I absolutely see that in you. And so you've been coming back and forth from Dubai. You felt like, oh my gosh, I could do something here. And I've got to say, I have felt the same about Dubai. There is an energy here. And I think more than even the city and the beautiful buildings, the mindset here is something that I really felt was quite magnetizing and very different, refreshing. It was almost like, you know, when you get the same old, I've heard that, oh, you'll never get to it. Whereas here, it feels like, wait, if you want to do it, it's available to you.
It's literally at your doorstep. You know, people can say what they want to say about Dubai. People have their misconceptions, their ideas of it. You may have visited once or twice on a holiday. Living here, being a resident here, truly living and breathing here is a completely different energy. You cannot explain it. That's why I challenge anyone who has a negative view of it to come and live here for a month or two if you're able to do so. Then you'll see the truth of it. We don't all dine at the Burj Khalifa every night. You know, we have a normal life and a normal social, you know, circle where we all love each other and support each other. And that energy that you're speaking about, the reason why it's so accessible is because everybody here is thriving to be better.
Yeah.
They just want to be better. And the humbling thing is, no matter what room you're in, you are never the most successful. You know, and I don't mean financially. I mean just in everything that they're doing. And there's always people to connect with. People are always willing to help in any way they can. You know, we really, truly support each other here. And I didn't feel like that energy was there in the UK.
Yeah,
and that's not bashing the UK. I love the UK. It is my home. I love the people there. Energies are just different.
So I want to talk a little bit about, you came to Dubai and honestly, what the stuff that you've done here has been amazing. It's been beautiful to watch. I mean, having Idris Elba on and you've got, you know, Tyra Banks. When you have these amazing celebrities come up, how do you prepare yourself to kind of make sure that you turn up as your best self and that you're not overcome with, like, I don't know, like
being
starstruck?
Yeah. You know, I have never been starstruck by a celebrity because at the end of the day, I keep reminding myself they are humans. They are someone's daughter, they're someone's son, they're someone's best friend, sister, brother. They are just like us. And so I always approach every interview with the thought of having a chat with a friend, and catching up with a friend. But one thing I always like to do before we start rolling, or even if I have like 10 seconds of their time, I just want to help them feel a bit more connected to me. Because media interviews can feel really, really, rigid. And you have to get away these questions and it's like, oh, so tell me about your brand. And, you know, there's not much character or meaning or depth behind it. So, and also they do so many media interviews back to back that you want to be remembered. How do I make sure they remember me?
How can you be remembered?
So I'll share a great example with you, which is with Gary Vee. And I was so excited to interview him. I'm so inspired by him.
Yeah.
I think he just does things differently to anyone else. And, you know, I thought, okay, I need to share something with him. I want to share a story of something, like a piece of me with him. So before we started, I was like, oh, Gary, you know, my dad is a serial entrepreneur as well. He's working nonstop. He's about to hit 60. I don't know what to do. Like, I'm at a point where I want him to enjoy life now. I want him to enjoy everything that he's built for himself. How do I do that? And Gary was like, you know what? You really don't need to. Has it ever occurred to you that he's happy just the way he is doing what he's doing? And I was like, yeah, you know what? You're so right. I absolutely love that. Then we got into the actual media interview.
So nice, because what you've done there is actually create a human connection, right?
Yeah.
Whereas like sometimes when you go in and you're like, let's say you're just rolling off questions, you haven't managed to actually get that connection in there first.
No.
And that makes both of you relaxed, in fact, doesn't it?
Yeah.
That's such a great tip.
And so then literally a year later, he was back in town and I was due to interview him. And I was like, there is no way he's going to remember me. Of course he's not going to remember me. He sees thousands of faces every day. I walk into the room and I'm about to go in to be like, hey, Gary, I don't know if you remember. And he was like, hey, how's your dad?
Oh, I love it.
And I was like, wow. Like, first of all, what a man to remember something like that. But second of all, it just showcases the human connection, the ability to share a part of yourself with someone else is what is unforgettable. That is what is memorable about you. That is what is unique about you. And that will translate in every single relationship you intentionally do that with.
That is a massive takeaway. So simple, but so effective.
Yeah.
So I just want to quickly go into the speaker platform because I think this is amazing. I believe this platform is needed because not everyone understands that finding a way to get your voice out in whatever you do is actually your power. So tell me, like, I know what inspired you because we've had your story. How can people get involved in your platform and what can it give them?
Yeah, you know, your voice is your greatest asset. And in saying that, I think that we need to know how to identify it first, the source of our voice. We need to break down everything we think we know about confidence and communication. And that's exactly what I do with my community. And I want to rebuild that. I want to rebuild it to what it should be. And I want it to be unique to every single individual. And so now we've built a huge community of 500 women, which I'm so proud of. And we all just really support each other. You know, we talk about things that are relevant to our life. The other day, one of the girls said, you know, can we please have a session on one of the calls about how to speak highly about yourself? Because when people get asked, what do you do?
Self-deprecating is a very English thing as well.
Yeah, right? You make a joke about yourself or you deflect your credibility and everything that you've done. A lot of people aren't comfortable about achieving things and showcasing it to the world. So I did a whole session on that. And I was like, okay, these are the 5 steps that you can take in order to make sure you own your narrative. I'm not talking about just professionally. I'm talking about personally as well.
Yeah.
And the results have been amazing with these women. And I truly believe, you know, this is needed in the world, like you said, but the dream for me would, you know, and I'm going to put it out in the world to manifest it, is that I really want to work with the Ministry of Education to make sure we implement this curriculum of public speaking within the school foundations, you know, for kids from a very, very young age. Because if I was able to find my voice from an earlier age, I think my experience would be very different.
My God, I so agree with you, Nimi. I mean, all that you've had to go through, great, right? Because it's made you who you are.
Yeah.
But imagine having some of that when you were younger, right? Like, it's almost like you've had to really fight for it.
Yeah.
And it's like to open that up to younger people from a very young age is so needed. I'm with you on that. I want to actually be part of your 501. It's been an absolute pleasure. I literally could speak to you all day.
I know,
Like,
we really could. I told you it would go quickly.
I know, it really has. I do have like a closing tradition, which is, what advice would you give your younger self?
Oh,
Just that gift of hindsight, which you wish you had when you were younger. But what would you give as a gift to yourself?
Oh, the gift.
And to our listeners.
Yeah, the gift I would give to my younger self, it's not self-belief because I had that. I think the gift I would give to myself is the belief that when you are older, you're going to have a circle around you that will believe in you and your cause. And I think that kind of vision of knowing that would have been so comforting for me at a younger age, because I didn't have it. I didn't have the friends around me who really backed me 100%. And now, not only do I have the most beautiful friends in the world, but I also have now 500 strong women around me, and 501 strong women around me who are believing in the cause that is bigger than me. So I would share that for sure.
Oh my God, I love it.
Yeah.
I love you.
Oh,
This has been absolutely lovely. Thank you so much, Nimi.
Thank you.
Woo-hoo! That was beautiful.